So today we're going to be working on absolute value inequalities. It's a little bit similar to just regular inequalities. It's just that in this case we're adding the absolute value to them. Before we start with the problems, I just want to review what the inequality entails. So whenever we have an inequality, remember that the only rule that we're going to follow is that the inequality is going to flip whenever we multiply or divide both sides by a negative number. Has to be a negative. If it's a positive, we keep it as is. Also remember that we always want the letter on the left hand side. It's just easier to graph, and you guys will see right now. Whenever we're graphing, if it's just less than or just greater than like that without the line at the bottom, as we have right here, it's just going to be an open circle. Means that we're not including that number. If it has a line at the bottom, which means it's going to equal to, so it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, then we're going to shade the circle. All this will make sense right now when we start with this. Just the only thing that right here, whenever we want to work with, when we're working with absolute value inequalities, we're going to take out the absolute value. Remember that the absolute value of any number is just that number itself. It's just it has to be positive. It's like the distance. Like if I take 3 steps forward, so 1, 2, 3, how many steps did I take? 3. If I take 3 steps back, 1, 2, 3, I still took 3 steps regardless. So that's what the absolute value is, like the distance kind of thing. So for the first one, the absolute value of m minus 2 less than 8. How are we going to work it out? We're going to take out the absolute value. When we take it out, we're going to do our 2 equations. So the first one is going to be the same as is, or, we're going to say or, we're going to have this, whatever we have in the inside of the absolute value, m minus 2. Just that in this case, we're going to flip the inequality and make it a negative. So you see how the alligator mouth is open towards the 8. We're going to keep it open towards the opposite side, and we're going to make it a negative 8. So right here, we're going to solve for our m. So we're going to move the negative 2 first. Because we want to leave the m by itself on this side, we always want it on the left, so it's already on the left. We need to get rid of that 2 by adding 2 to both sides. The negative 2 with positive 2 is going to cancel. We bring down the letter, which is m. Inequality stays the same because we were adding, we were not multiplying or dividing. What's 8 plus 2? 8 plus 2 gives us 10. Now we work on this next one. It's going to be the same steps that we have right here, only that the answer is going to be different because right here we had a positive 8, right here we have a negative 8. So we're going to be adding 2 to both sides. These two are going to cancel. Bring down the m. M is greater than negative 8 plus 2, so we owe $8. We have 2. At the end of the day, we're going to owe 6. So these both are our answers. Now we're going to graph it. Okay, so right here, first of all, we're going to have an open circle because we don't have the line at the bottom, so it's going to be open at 10. Let me get a different color, like that we see. We have it open at 10, and the reason why we want the letter on the left-hand side is just it's easier to graph it. Just see where it's pointing. It's going towards the left, so we're going to go towards the left. Now for this one, m is at negative 6. We have an open circle. So it's going to be open. This one is going towards the right, so we're going to go towards the right. Now our answer, whenever they overlap, is whatever is overlapping. So in this case, it will be everything in between negative 6 all the way to 10, not including 6 or 10. So that will be our answer. Sometimes they go opposite directions. I think that's going to happen in number 8, and we'll see how we're going to graph it. So for number 8, before we take it out of the absolute value, we have to get rid of the 2. We have to isolate the absolute value on this side, on either side, but just has to be by itself. We can't have other numbers. In this case, we have the 2, so that's the first thing that we're going to do is get rid of the 2. So we have the absolute value by itself. It's a positive 2, so we're going to do the opposite, which is a minus 2 or a negative 2. These cancel it out. The absolute value comes down. Greater than equal to what is 5 minus 2? 5 minus 2 will be 3. Now that we have it, we can take it out of the absolute value. So in this case, we just have the letter. We're not going to have to move anything around. We're just taking it out of the absolute value. When we take it out, we keep it as is, the first one, Or we're gonna say the second one, we flip the inequality, so it was open towards the end. Now we're gonna keep it open towards the 3, but instead of making it a 3, we're gonna make it a -3. To graph it, at 3, right here, we have a shaded circle because it has a line at the bottom. So we're gonna go to 3, shaded circle. In this case, this one is pointing towards the right, so we're going everything towards the right. Then right here at -3 is still a closed circle, so we're shading it in. And this one is pointing towards the left. This one is going opposite direction, so it could be anything from -infinity all the way to -3, including -3 in this case, and +3 all the way to infinity. So the difference between these two, this one was overlapping, so it's just whatever overlaps. If they go opposite directions, that's gonna be, remember that we have to isolate the letter or the absolute value by itself on that side. That's the same thing that we're gonna do in 23. We have to get rid of the 4, we have to get rid of the 8. Both of those numbers are not inside of the absolute value, so we have to get rid of those first. Treat the absolute value like we do like the letter. So the first thing that we're gonna have to get rid of is gonna be the 8. We're gonna have to move that 8 over to the other side because it doesn't have the absolute value in there. It's a +8, so we're gonna make it a -8. So -8, -8. This cancels this, the whole thing, just drop it down. We didn't touch it, so just bring it down. 4 times the absolute value of 6 minus 2a. Inequality stays the same because we were subtracting. We're not multiplying or dividing by a negative. 24 minus 8 will be 16. We still can take out the absolute value because we still have the 4 right here. A number next to anything like that with nothing in between is, it means multiplication. Opposite of multiplication will be division. Remember, fraction means division, so we're gonna divide both sides by the number that's in the outside because that's what we want to get rid of. So the 4 absolute value, so I'm gonna just draw a line so we have our new absolute value inequality down here. So the absolute value of 6 minus 2a less than or equal to 16 divided by 4 will be 4. Now that we have the absolute value by itself, remember we always have to have it by itself, we could break it apart. We could have our two inequalities. So the first one is gonna stay as is, so it's 6 minus 2a less than or equal to 4, or now we're gonna copy the same thing that we have inside the absolute value. Now we have 6 minus 2a, but the inequality is gonna flip and we're gonna add a negative. So now it goes the opposite direction and -4. So right here, the first thing that we're gonna get rid of, we have to get rid of the 6 and the -2. The first one that we get rid of is the one without the letter, so it's gonna be the 6. So what I'm gonna say is, since it's a +6, we're gonna subtract 6. Whatever you do on one side of the inequality, you have to do it on the other. Now right here, the inequality, again, is gonna stay the same because we are subtracting, we're not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So 6 minus 6 is gonna cancel out. We bring down the -2a. Inequality stays the same. 4 minus 6 is gonna give us -2. We're almost done. We just need one more step right here. We have to get rid of the -2. -2a means -2 times a. Opposite of multiplication will be division, so we're gonna divide both sides by -2. The number on this side. These cancel out, so a, inequality, do we flip it or do we keep it the same? Right here on the rule, it says that the inequality flips when we multiply or divide by a negative number. In this case, we are dividing and it is a negative number, so inequality is gonna flip. -2 divided by -2 will be +1. The same thing that we did right here, you know how we subtracted 6 first, then divided by -2, and we flipped the inequality, is exactly what we're gonna be doing over there. The only thing is that over there, we're gonna get a different answer because we started with different numbers. It's not the same thing as saying we have $4 versus we owe $4. So first thing, subtract 6 to both sides. These cancel, bring down the negative 2a. Right here at this point, we didn't flip the inequality, we flipped it at the end. -4, -6, we owe $4 to one person, to another person we owe them 6, so we're gonna owe a total of $10. You see how right here it's different numbers? Right here we had a -2, over here we had a -10. Then we divided both sides by a negative number, so we're gonna divide both sides by -2, the number that's next to the letter. These cancel out, so A, inequality is gonna flip. Since we were dividing by a negative number, we're gonna flip it. -10 divided by -2 will give us +5. To graph it, at +1, we have a closed circle because it has a line at the bottom. And we are going to the right. At +5, we have a closed circle, and this one is pointing towards the left. So where are they overlapping? Is everything in between right here. So it's gonna be everything in between 1 and 5, including those numbers.